The text message screenshot that was published by the Times is a forgery. But we all knew that, didn't we? Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me from in the world, welcome. I'm Jack Lad. This is my ship, the Salt Pig. Welcome aboard. So, Russell Brand has been accused of some very terrible things, and lots of people have been saying that there is absolute proof in the text messages published by the Times in their recent exposé on September 16th. However, as we're all aware, the truth can be manipulated and often is by the mainstream media. They expect us to trust their word, that the research that they have done is robust and verified, but as we've seen as of late, we can't trust a thing that they say at all. And I'm afraid we can't just go on the simple merits of, trust us bro, we did our research bro, we have the verification bro. Okay, can we see your research and your empirical data? No, it's just for us bro, we're journalists, what, do you think we'd lie? Just trust us bro, it's authentic and real. But before we carry on, don't forget to take an opportunity to like, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to click the little notification icon so that you can constantly stay updated on new content. And while you're at it, come and follow me on Twitter at JackTarLad. The links are in my bio and in the description below. Now, Brand, as we know, unless you've been living under a rock or something, of course, has been under scrutiny by a joint investigation by the Times and Channel 4 dispatches, which alleged victims claim Brand was highly inappropriate, let's say, and in some cases criminal. Now, I'm not trying to minimise it, I'm on YouTube and I'm trying to vet my words, but I'm assuming at this point, because he's been all over the papers, that everybody knows what the allegations are. And one of those pieces of evidence that the general public are saying is so damning is an image of a text message thread between Brand and the alleged victim, who the Times have named as Nadia. But Jack, you silly man, this image is obviously just a graphic to help people easily understand the context of the messages, right? Well, yes and no. While it's plausible deniability to say, well, this is just a graphic, it was never intended to serve as proof of guilt, it's a very sneaky way of fooling someone, or even most people, I would say, into believing that this is an actual text message thread. And just like many of us, I was almost fooled. But it is indeed just a graphic and does not represent an accurate visualization of their exchange. It's a mishmash of image sources and iPhones Frankenstein together to help cement a narrative in people's heads. Because if you've seen some of my videos before, you know once I get something rolling around in my head, it niggles at me and the tisms start to come out. So it all started when I analysed the image and then first ensured that it was the one that they had published, the Times had published, and not like a Twitter screen grab or whatever. So I went straight to the source and the links are in the description. I then put it into a photo editor, and just by simply adjusting the levels, I was able to make out some editing artifacts and some other little things. One especially stood out, which is over a date, and we'll get into that in a minute. And then I checked the EXIF metadata, and that also turned up some very interesting results. If you don't know what EXIF metadata is, it's like an ID card for digital photos containing information about when and how the picture was taken or created, including details like the camera model, shutter speed, and GPS coordinates if available. But it can also tell you if it's been accessed by photo editing software and its revision history. For example, here you can see that it was actually edited on this date with this program and edited again on this date with this program. And interestingly, here you can see a file path with the username nkraus. Now, after a small bit of scouring the Times website and using a few Google dorks to do some targeted searches, I found out that this N. Kraus is a graphic designer named Nina Kraus. who I'm assuming is a freelancer given her work history and portfolio, but she's currently working for the Times in some capacity. In any case, that's publicly available knowledge, and I'm not going to be giving out any more information on this person. But we'll get onto the EXIF data in just a minute, because that really helps us to understand the life of this file. First, I'd like to just quickly focus on proving that this Frankenstein's monster is indeed not as it seems. Perhaps I could coin the phrase Krausenstein's monster. Anyway, at first I thought it was a screenshot, but as I said, my tisms started to show, and I quickly devolved into Charlie from Sunny and Philly levels of erratic thought. As some people had pointed out, there was a chop right in the middle of one of the messages, and as I mentioned earlier, I found an artifact over the date by adjusting levels. But then it dawned on me, this isn't a screenshot at all. This is comprised of scans of printouts. And as I studied it harder, I thought, I've seen these artifacts in other paper scans, and as you can see, the brightness has blown the lettering out, it's too bright. And the bottom half of the thread has been resized and poorly matched to the top half, emboldening the text along with it, which admittedly lots of people had pointed out by this point because it was so blatantly obvious. But then I saw Tug's video and I saw the irregularities in the orientation of the next messages. It was all askew. And I was racking it over in my brain. I was thinking to myself, what's going on here? Why would someone do this? And I was spending a lot of time concentrating on that. And I thought to myself, I'm just wasting time here. I need a new angle on this. And all of a sudden it just popped into my head, why not try this with actual examples of iPhone messages? And it turns out there's this wonderful little online emulator where you can go demo different iPhones and their operating systems. Appetize.io is not an affiliate or a sponsor, but it is what I use to generate these examples. One of the first things that I wanted to test was replicating that first message. I wanted to see if I could get it to line up perfectly, and what it proved to me is that I couldn't, because the phone that these messages were taken from must have been an iPhone 5, and the emulator doesn't go any lower than an iPhone 8 on iOS 13. Now, how did I come to that conclusion? Well, I could never get the word "and" on the first line to go onto the next line. This would be caused by a smaller screen size condensing the words more towards the left, which is why in the Times example the word "and" is returned onto the next line. The iPhone 8 has a 4.7-inch screen and the messages will look the same on all 4.7-inch screens, which means it needs to be a smaller screen to return the word onto the new line. But the next size down is an iPhone 5, and the iPhone 4, which is even smaller with a 3.5-inch screen, has a completely different message bubble layout, and like the actual message bubbles look completely different. Now, it is fair to say that I haven't replicated this on an iPhone 5 because I don't have one and thus was not able to replicate it, but it is reasonable to assume that since all of the iPhones after version 5 have at least a 4.7-inch screen and I can't replicate it on any of those, thus I have empirically proven that these images were taken on an iPhone 5 in the absence of direct evidence. You see, that's what this show's all about. I don't always like to speculate. I like to try to prove things beyond reasonable doubt, and I'll always disclaim if I'm speculating. I try to be fair. Anyway, the reason why this is relevant is because the header and the footer of the messages presented by the Times contain features that weren't even released until iOS 15 and 16 respectively. For example, the header and the footer don't even match the iPhone 8 running iOS 15, and similarly, while almost identical, the message footer on iOS 15 doesn't match iOS 16, as they introduced a new voice message icon in the message text box. This is an iPhone 8 running on iOS 13.7. Like I said, 4.7-inch screen, and you can't get the "and" to return onto the next line. And that is the same for all of the operating systems on the iPhone 8. I'm using the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 11 as examples. So this is iOS 14.5. This is iOS 15.5. And you'll note that the icon is up there now, the new FaceTime icon is up there. And what I wanted to point out as well is the voice note icon there as we change into iOS 16. You can see is now changed into a microphone instead of a wave. And on the iPhone 11 as well, that's iOS 13.7, iOS 14.5, iOS 15.5, and iOS 16.2. So the footer on the Times image is from a phone running iOS 16. The header could be from a phone running iOS 15 or higher, because that's when they introduced this FaceTime icon at the top. So this image has been composited together from different sources and is not, for example, two screenshots taken from an iPhone stitched together. That would have been a more genuine approach, but they didn't have that because these messages were provided to the Times from Nadia without headers or footers, so they had to make it look like they did. Which completely blows this out of the water as proof of guilt, because now we can't tell if there are other messages and missing context. For all we know, there could be far more in between these few messages stitched together. We don't know, so any talk of this being proof is unfortunately still speculation. I mean, there's no saying that these messages even came from Brand's phone. They could be fabricated on someone else's phone, pasted into this, printed out, and then rescanned to make them look old. And they're just saying that it's verified. We as the public don't have the verification they're claiming. They're simply presenting a fabricated text thread and stating it's verified. Now, moving on to the EXIF data, we can see that the file was edited and saved on this date in 2019. And then again on the day of the article release. It was saved half an hour before it went public by Nina Kraus. Something else to note about the files used to composite this is the name of the files, particularly because they are named with a date that is after the day of publication. And I do not know what is going on here, but what I do know is that it was imported into this file 3 times, according to the EXIF data. Now imagine the alleged victim has sent all of these screenshots or printouts of all the text history, and someone in the investigation compiles them all into one big image file made up of all these scans. That's what I think this one file is, and it's been imported at least 3 times, cut to shreds, layered and arranged into one condensed thread that makes the conversation flow to their narrative. And there's no saying that the messages came from the alleged victim's phone anyway, because they could have come from absolutely anywhere. Only they have the verification. Just trust us, bro! Now that's just my opinion and it's pure speculation. I have absolutely no proof that that's what happened, obviously. But I would like to go back and focus on this one thing. Remember I mentioned the artifact over the date? Well, I'm speculating through educated experience of the compositing process and the software used that this artifact was a part of a later composite. The artifact seems to be like someone erased a small portion from a layer above another layer which contained the date they wanted to paste in. I propose that the original text screenshots or printouts, whatever they are, didn't have the dates above them, and the one above her long message was added in post facto. They keep going on about how Nadia went to the clinic the very next day. He texted her on July the 1st, 2012 at 3:29 AM, and she didn't text back until 10:59 in the morning after being up all night. Well, I don't believe that there's proof of that in the text messages provided to the investigators, because I think the date was added after they all got their story straight. Let me show you what I mean. So I want to give you this example. What we have here is a photo editing suite, and I've taken the original image of the text message thread and I've pasted it in here 3 times. Now, the fact that I mentioned that it had been pasted in 3 times earlier to Nina's project file has no bearing on the fact that I've pasted it in here 3 times. That's just a coincidence. But what I want to show you is I've got a background layer which is just completely white, and then I have the very original one of the text message. Then we have one that I created where I've blanked the date out for demonstration, and then I've created another one which has been permanently edited with the levels as I showed you earlier, so that it shows that artifact. Now, what that artifact looks to me like is an erasure mark. It looks like someone's taken the eraser tool here, and if I show you there, see it's all nice and round, almost I've got it to the right size there. And it looks like what they've done is they've come along and they've deleted this bit here like that. They've come along with their mouse or their stylus, whatever they've got to use to edit. They've come along and they've deleted that bit there. Now, what do I mean by that? What would be the purpose of that? Well, if you've got an image like this that doesn't have a date in it and you need to put a date in there, if you have got an image with the date in it, yeah, like let's just pretend that this is completely separate from all of this, yeah, and it's been cut out from somewhere else. What you would do is essentially put this behind the one that doesn't have the date in it, and then you could erase it. Watch, I'll show you. So if I click on this layer here and I reduce the opacity a little bit, you can see that it's starting to come through, yeah, because I'm reducing the opacity of the layer that is on top so we can kind of see through it now. Now, all I have to do is kind of on the original file, sorry, layer 3 is now invisible just for a second because I want to move it just to show you. I can move this around anywhere that I want on here, yeah? And what I would do is line it up where I think I want it, yeah? And then check. And I'd keep doing that until I got it right. I'm just going to undo those moves. And now I can see roughly where it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eraser tool. I've got the layer on top that's selected, and I can just take the eraser tool and go across it like that. And now if I put the opacity of that layer back up 100%, there's literally no difference between those two now. But if I switch the layer underneath off, you see? But one of the things that you got to notice about this entire thing is that it doesn't even match up. Like, none of it matches up. For example, down here, this line here, this line right here, that is the edge of the iPhone. That's where the edge of the iPhone should be. And this line here is also where the edge of the iPhone screen should be. However, you've got these bits that are hanging over. And what's more is, this message here is hanging over what would be the line of the edge of the iPhone. So it has most definitely 100% been composited together. This is not a screenshot, or it is not a couple of screenshots that have been poorly edited together and there you can see this line. It's not that at all. This is literally a mishmash of all different things. And another thing that I want to point out as well is this bit here and this bit here. They are so nice and crisp. Yeah, you see that? They are so nice and crisp compared to all of the other stuff that's in it. It's the same with this down here, nice and crisp. So they've been added after the fact, and what's more is that would have been the case if you'd have added a footer and a header in that was taken from a screenshot from today. It would be just as crisp as that, and you wouldn't have all of these degradation marks. And the thing that makes me believe that someone has gone to great lengths to make this image look so genuine is this. if you'd have just took a screenshot of the header and the footer to add to the composite, because the original text messages are scans from paper, it would look too fresh and crisp, because they're scanning artifacts in the original text messages, as we can see. And you have to keep in mind that those headers and footers were not available at the time of the original prints. So someone has literally took a screenshot recently of the headers and footers, they've printed them out, and they've scanned them back into the computer to composite it with these original text messages so that the quality degradation matches somewhat, so that it looks more plausible. But that, as I say, is merely educated speculation. And so there we have it, folks. I just wanted to give you my little breakdown of this image, presenting some empirical proof and a few theories and ideas to put out into the ether. What are my final thoughts? Well, does this prove his guilt or innocence? No. Does this prove that the image is fabricated? Yes. Someone has gone to great lengths to try and make this look as genuine as possible so that the reader believes the narrative. Do I believe that this is a smoking gun? Yes. If the message thread can be verified by everyone. Otherwise, it's just merely speculation. Do I think that there is context missing from this conversation? Absolutely, yes. There are too many edits that, unless all of the context from the original phone or phone records are obtained and presented to, at the very least, a court, everything is just anecdotal hearsay. Remember that this is just anecdotal hearsay until we, the public, or a court can also verify that these come from the source, and we can look at the original images. This is just hearsay. Can this image be entered as evidence in a court of law? Absolutely not. It is not a true representation of the, as of yet, unofficially verified text thread. It's literally a composite. No, you can't submit this image as evidence in court. Can this image be used to sway an argument in the court of a public opinion? Yes, of course, and that is precisely what it's meant to do. You don't need empirical evidence to prove things in a court of public opinion using facts and discovery. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion that they can use to convince others, and everyone just believes what they want to believe. But let me know what you believe in the comments. Is this a fabrication meant to mislead the readers, or is it just a harmless little graphic that helps the reader gain the most context from the conversation? Till next time, thank you so much if you made it this far. Check me out on Twitter at JackTarLad. Please look out for more content soon, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But whatever you do, remember to always stay free.